Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Made for Mondays podcast. New setup in the room. It's very exciting.
I know. Yep. Jeremy did such a great job. Looks great, Jeremy.
We'll see. You're doing great. So, who do we have here with us in the studio?
I'm Heather. I'm the executive director here.
And the teacher from yesterday.
And the teacher from yesterday.
Which I know we'll get into that in a little bit, but that was such a great message.
Oh, thanks, Jamie.
I mean, one of your best.
Oh, thank you.
It was so good.
Let's dig in first before we start coming out.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Getting ahead
a lot
of
more to talk about.
Getting ahead of myself.
On the surface, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm here, Sam.
Hi, Candace.
Hi, Candace.
Hello.
So Candace is our special guest today, and we're so happy to have you here with us.
Oh, man, it's an honor to be here, really.
Yeah, so fun. So we'll get into your story and why you're here today. But first, let's just kind of talk about the weekend. What'd you guys do?
We need to get some crowd effects that we can put in
Like-
after. So, and this is Candace, our special guest. Yeah, it's like studio
Clapping.
audience.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
That
Or we
is a
could
great
we could just
Yeah,
I know, but our
that's
claps.
so good. That's like every time we
historically are
welcome a new
terrible.
volunteer
Sarcastic,
onto
like,
the creative
slow
team.
clap.
yeah, a sarcastic slow clap.
Right.
I mean, that fits us.
Yes.
It really does.
Whenever we have a new
sense.
production person, we introduce them like on a Sunday in a huddle, and it is the worst clap ever.
Yeah, and then we tell them, and that's as good as it's ever going to get. Yeah.
We've tried to really break that, but yeah,
it
just
doesn't
is what
work.
it is.
No,
Yeah.
that is our.
Anyways, come serve in production. It's so much fun.
So
Right.
much
We
fun.
love
and
you.
you're so appreciated.
Yeah.
You really are appreciated. We
Yeah.
just don't. We're not great at showing it.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm partly responsible for the terrible.
Yeah, we're all in
culture
on this
here.
together.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, what did you do this weekend?
We got an opportunity to go down to the Outer Banks with some friends
Nice.
for Thursday night and Friday night. And that was really fun. We got to go to 2 new restaurants that I hadn't been to down there.
Where
we
did you go?
went to Trio, which I know you just
I
went to.
just went to Trio a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
very good.
Uh huh.
And then we went to Blue Moon Cafe, which I guess is a OBX staple. It used to be in a strip mall across from the Harley Davidson building.
Yeah, it was pointed out to me they've got a very large outdoor space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah.
Oh, you said it's by the Harley Davidson? I know
Yeah,
where that's
it's
at.
like past that now. So they built their own place, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
So it's down on the old highway. I don't know what they call it. Is that what they call
Yep.
it? Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, way down, like down on the left.
What
Yep,
does Trio
way down
have
on
to
the
eat?
left.
Trio is like, it's kind of like an upscale taste. Like when you go in, it's like a market kind of area. And so you can get like all sorts of
So I got-
pastas and stuff like
I got
that.
a crab pot pie.
Yeah, that's what Nate and Bart
Yes.
got.
Man, it was good.
Sounds good.
I love a chicken pot pie. Throw crab in there?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so good.
And I
really good.
think our friend Ted, I think he got shrimp and grits, and then I got a chicken prosciutto, which was with a marsala
course you did.
sauce. It was delicious.
What is the most bougie thing to order on this? Yes, I'll take that.
Chicken is not bougie.
The other word you
all
said
the rest
was
of it was.
Yes.
Prosciutto,
Yeah.
you've had that.
I understand, but I have to order it myself. I'm not ordering it because I can't say that word.
You have to wait
They
for
have a
someone
number
else
system.
to order it, and then you say, "I'll have that too."
Right.
Yeah.
More of a I'll take a number 7 kind of guy.
Right.
Supersize that, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was lovely. It was a
Did you guys go on the water?
relax? Yeah, a little bit.
Because I heard the jellyfish are coming in.
The jellyfish
It's
were
about that time.
crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
August.
Crazy.
I was just there last week, and it was great.
What was funny is when we first got down to the beach, there were none. Like it was totally fine. And then as the waves were like coming in, I mean, you could see
Wow.
the jellyfish in the waves.
Ugh.
And then they're just like all over the beachfront. But most of them are like the little disc ones that aren't going to hurt you or anything.
okay,
So
they're
people
not-
were still in the water.
Oh, okay, good.
But yeah, it was just,
Have you ever been
was
stung
weird.
by one?
no. I haven't.
Oh yeah, many times.
Oh, yeah?
Many times?
Oh yeah. Well, I grew up here,
Yeah.
Okay.
so
That seems
Oh, wow.
terrifying.
salt life is kind of the thing.
Do you just pee on it?
That's,
No, right,
that's
everyone-
the remedy. That's
Right?
what I've heard.
No, you just take wet sand and you rub it.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's way
And then
better
it
than
goes
peeing
away?
on someone.
Yeah, it feels better.
I wish
Why
I would've
is
known
that not the thing that people
Did you
talk
pee on
about?
yourself?
He had his buddy
so
pee on
many
him.
times. I don't want to talk about it. If I had a nickel. I didn't do anything this weekend. It was hot out. We went to the pool.
It was very hot.
I played pickleball last week though.
Oh,
So
nice.
we've been talking about that a little bit. So I am now trying to play all the old man sports.
Yeah,
'cause-
good for you.
Yeah, and so we've been doing that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
What
you're
are
interested
the
in playing
other
pickleball,
old
let me
man
know.
sports?
Shuffleboard
men's softball.
has men's softball.
I'm on the men's softball team.
Do you play
Okay.
shuffleboard?
That
That seems like an old man
but I
sport.
would.
Yeah.
Shuffleboard down at beach Beachside Social in Virginia Beach is so fun.
Is it?
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I
They
didn't know that
they
was a
have
thing.
like 4 to 6 shuffleboards, and it's all inside, and there's also like bocce ball and stuff like that. But it's a huge space that you can go hang out with a bunch of friends.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Yeah, it's super fun.
That reminded me. I also watched a lot this weekend. ESPN has their Ocho going on right now, so it's on ESPN News, and
Okay.
every 30 minutes it's a different sport. Just random things. I saw it was over in Germany, I think, yesterday, and they like jump on the pole. Oh, sorry, Jeremy. They jump on a pole and they like fly across water and land in sand. I don't know what it's called.
What?
The extreme
Oh, it's-
pole vaulting.
Yeah, it's exactly what it looks like. But it's all these like wild sports. I don't know if it's on for another week, but it was unbelievable. I couldn't turn a channel.
Wow.
Yeah, it's every third. You know the one wheel. You know the new
Unicycle?
No, it looks like that, but it's sideways and it's motorized.
Oh, yeah,
that guy
yeah.
used to ride around in the parking lot. a
Oh,
lot.
yeah. Uh-huh.
They have races on like outdoor in the woods tracks.
Really?
And they're going over jumps
So-
and falling. It was
Wow.
amazing.
My guess is that you had opportunity to do more this weekend, but you were locked in.
Well, I just chose to do that.
Yeah, okay.
I had many opportunities to do different things, but
You're like,
it was
but
hot
this-
out, so
Right,
that's what
Yeah.
led me to that.
And
so.
ESPN was doing their thing. So.
Yeah, it was great. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. Candace probably the same. So what did you do this weekend?
What were you up to, Candace?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have 2 mini humans, so they keep us busy.
Yeah.
And Chris and I, we just cannot rest. We need to. And
Yeah.
we keep telling each other every weekend, we need to do nothing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, it never happens.
And
Yeah.
how old are your kids?
Oh my gosh. Just turned 4, just turned 9.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yep.
But Friday, we went to Suffolk Bennett's Creek Park and
Oh, yeah. They
and
had the
saw
concert thing.
DeLoreans. Who doesn't
Oh,
love
yes.
80s music?
Okay, fun.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that on socials.
Oh gosh, I love that. And then
Was there a good turnout?
it was a
Yeah?
really good turnout. It was hot. And,
Yeah.
I'm kind of spoiled because we used to live in that neighborhood.
Okay.
And so we would just ride our bikes
Oh,
there.
right.
But we moved.
Uh-huh.
And so now, it's
You
like
have to like
not the
get
same.
parking
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
it's
Yeah.
not the same. But it's still great concert,
Yeah.
good turnout. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And who doesn't love a free concert?
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And then so we have this tradition. And that's what we did on Saturday. So our tradition is every summer, right after the girls' birthdays, we take family pictures. But they're not just family pictures.
No,
They-
I know. Tell us all about this. I
What
love
are
it so
they?
much.
So when my oldest daughter, Grayson, turned 1, I bought these shoes. And I bought them in 2 different sizes because I never knew what size
Right.
she would wear. And I take a picture of her every year growing into these shoes.
Okay.
And so I did the same for my youngest daughter, Brooke. So every year they get these shoe pictures.
Oh, funny.
And we take pictures of them growing into them. And I keep telling them, I'm like, look, you don't have to wear them on your wedding day. I just need a picture of them on
Right,
your wedding day.
right,
That's
right.
it.
Yeah.
If and when you choose to get wedded, like whatever big milestone, give it to mom. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Give me that
So
token
you just,
picture.
you just guessed a size that you're like, it's probably going to be around this.
Yeah, I got a 7 and a 9.
Okay.
of both. And so Grayson's color is yellow, and Brooks has these like blazing hot pink ones, and it's
that's
so
awesome.
yeah, it suits her personality. So
That's
Yeah.
really
fun.
cool. It'd be funny if their feet got really big, though. It's like by their wedding day, they're like out the front of them.
Have to cut off. Yeah.
Toes hanging out the front. You're like, I did not judge that right.
No, I know. It's funny because I'm just like, ooh, do I need to get one more size?
Yeah, right.
Just in case, a backup.
Backup. Yeah. And then my mom, she had her birthday last week. So we have a tradition in our family that we do steamed crabs on her birthday. And
That's a pretty good tradition.
It is. It's great. And my mom has advanced stages of MS. So it ends up being my brother's on one side, I'm on another, and we just pick crabs all night for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
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 Did you get your hands all cut up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah. Very good.
Jamie,
you and
did
Chris.
you eat
Oh,
anything?
sorry, never mind.
I
say
did
something.
actually. So last week I was in the Outer Banks for a few days, which was super fun. And then this weekend, because I'm a big beach person.
Yeah.
You really are.
Obviously.
You love to
can
tan.
tell. Yeah, you can tell.
I mean, just
by
soaking
my
up the sun.
pasty whiteness that I just love the beach.
Yeah.
I love it. So I went
love
I went Saturday to Chicks Beach with, well, initially it was with Bonnie and Sarah, and then Sarah and Esther joined us, and then Derek joined us also. So we had a great time. It was super fun, and I went to my brother's shop, A Sure Thing, for the
It's
first
so-
time.
Such a great store.
Which is, yeah, that was super fun. I say it's my brother's shop. It's actually his wife's shop.
What are they selling
He
there?
just works there.
like
just like
decor
beach-
kind of
okay.
things. Yeah.
Beach decor type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very cool shop, and we bought a couple things and trying to keep the family afloat.
Yeah.
So we bought a few things while we were there.
It's a clever name. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right on Shore Drive,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, really very very nicely laid out in there. Very cool stuff,
And lots of local artisans.
including my brother. So
Yeah.
he has several pieces of artwork that are in there, and he's just such a talented guy. I'm always a little jealous of his abilities. He's got so many.
You loving the beach. Want to go back to that for a second?
Yeah, and my
still-
my forehead, which has greatly expanded over the years, was peeling on Sunday, which is just I hate when that happens.
I feel like you're the guy that's like 30 minutes at the beach. You're like, I gotta get. Where's my shirt? Where's my beach shirt?
Oh no, it's not even 30 minutes. I'm
You show up with a beach shirt
yes,
on.
beach
I
shirt
love that.
on,
with
and
sunscreen
I'm
underneath.
so yeah,
They have adult rash guards.
Yeah.
and under the umbrella at all times,
I love
except for
that.
when I'm in the water. Yeah, which I love going in the water, but yeah, I'm just so like. Through the years, I've had so many terrible sunburns. So
Yeah.
I've just learned that I'm just a pasty white guy,
So
and I need to be
Esther-
okay with that.
Is your sweet little grandbabe.
And
How
she
did
had
she do at
so
the
much
beach?
fun. She loves
good.
it. She loves the beach. So she loves being in the water. Yeah, it was very cute. She had a very big day. She had a birthday party, and then she went to the beach, and then we had a cookout at our house after the beach. So it was a very long day.
Social butterfly, that little
Right.
Etsy.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And she was just almost a perfect child the entire day. So it was really great.
You also purchased some new clothes.
Yeah, you came in here with some swagger this morning.
I did. I mean, I tried
looks
not to
super
be.
fresh.
I tried not to be flashy,
It just looked good.
but when you only wear jeans and motorcycle t-shirts,
Yeah.
anytime you change it up, it becomes
We're gonna
pretty
notice.
obvious. Yeah. So my normal apparel is jeans and motorcycle t-shirts, and today I'm wearing some olive-colored khaki,
Not just
chinos.
Olive colored chinos, but there's a nice little like apricot pocket.
There is, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, they
Baby
just, I mean, they look good.
Yeah, they look
Are they
great.
light? They're
They are
breathable.
They're breathable
Yeah.
and stretchy.
You're gonna
Maybe
love that.
could
Super
you
important.
tell us what brand they are? We're really looking to become influencers through this
Are we? We can
podcast.
get
Oh yeah,
so-
because if we could monetize this thing,
Yeah.
I
This
is
say that all the
sponsored by-
time.
This
Yeah,
segment, yeah.
yeah. This segment brought to you by Bird Dogs.
Oh, I love
Bird dogs.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure we're allowed to say that, but
Probably not.
It's probably not going to hit enough ears that we're going to get in trouble.
Right.
yeah, and most of their marketing is really kind of off color,
Yeah.
and not appropriate.
So probably wouldn't be our sponsor.
Probably not. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Anyways, check them out. And,
it's like a bunch of college guys started this
Yeah, it
company,
is.
and
They got-
they're a mess.
yeah, they really
Oh,
are.
that's hilarious.
But they're
Yeah.
doing really well.
Apparently, they
Yeah.
charge a lot for their
A
pants.
lot. But
Yeah.
they're durable. They're really good.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah.
You also are sporting some new shoes.
I
And
am.
for the benefit of my son Trey, who will listen to this podcast,
Yes.
Did
Trey,
you get new Skechers?
Trey, I think my Sketcher days are coming to a close. I think.
Oh
Wow.
boy.
Don't say that.
I mean,
I
I'm
have
not
a-
opposed to Skechers. I still have a pair.
You got a lot of life left,
yeah. I do.
I think.
Trey's going to be
Maybe.
really disappointed.
55 now.
Yeah.
Because
it's ticking away.
when
It
I was
is.
in Minnesota just recently,
Yeah.
we were in Target. I haven't even had a chance to show you this picture yet because you and I have been on like opposite
Correct.
schedules for the whole summer.
Yep.
But Trey took a picture like holding these Skechers that he wanted me to show you.
Oh.
So the devastation that he's going to experience hearing that you may be walking away from Sketcher life, you might have to offer some pastoral counseling in this thing.
So here's what I think. I think Trey would love my new shoes.
Oh, I think he will also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might convert with me away from Skechers.
Maybe.
I was glad
I
to
don't
hear
know.
though, because I was just talking to somebody yesterday that came up and was asking about some shoes that I had on, but they're kind of older. But they said, where do you get your shoes? Talking about, but I've reached the age of my life where I'm just buying the same pair of shoes. I'm just buying it over and over.
So I tried to do that. So I bought the last pair of shoes I had, which were also not Skechers.
Yeah.
They were Ultras, ALTRA, I think. They're like old man shoes.
yeah, I don't know what
Sam,
those are.
Yeah.
You have to start wearing
They're
old
like-
man shoes if
they're
you're
like
playing
w-
old man sports.
Yeah, you
I do.
definitely, you should
I
buy
did.
a pair of
after
Ultras.
I played pickleball. I was like, these shoes do not have enough support.
No, that's like,
It's the first thing I said to Gene when I got home. It's like, these
Yes.
are not supportive enough.
no, you need to buy a pair of Ultras. They're definitely old man shoes, and I love them. They're super comfortable. And I ordered another pair the exact same size, and they came in, they didn't fit. I don't know if my feet grew.
Is it like your
if
ears? Your feet always grow?
Like do your feet continue to grow when you get older? Maybe. I don't know.
Hopefully not for Kansas girls because the whole
I
wedding
know.
day
Trouble.
thing.
Yeah. Then you are going to have to get another pair.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So anyway, that's now that we've discussed my
Okay.
That's so great though. It's nice to be able to talk things with you because usually you're like, no, I didn't do anything. And
I've been
so that was awesome.
I've had a very busy few weeks here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on the go. So,
Vacation fresh.
yeah.
I
New
know.
look,
Shopping.
Shopping, yep, all online. I haven't
that.
gone anywhere to go shopping.
Well, of course not.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, so that's a good wrap up of the weekend. Bible reading challenge. We're now out of the book of
Yep,
Acts
Romans.
And in Romans.
and in Romans. I think today was the first half of chapter 8.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
believe.
yesterday was 7.
Yeah, so what's standing out to any of you on the New Testament reading challenge?
Well, I mean, we talked about how much we love the book of Acts, but
Yes.
Romans, honestly, for me, is like a close second. It's just, I love it so
High
much.
praise.
It's so deep.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think what's interesting about being in Romans right now, especially this section of Romans, is just talking about our sin nature. And so many of these conversations in this polarizing series is kind of around how we're viewing what's been either culturally or in Christendom identified as like sin struggles that we face.
Yeah.
And so just having this be our section of Bible reading right now, along with this series, I think is really great timing.
Yeah, it kind of stands out to me that in like Romans 1, 2, and into chapter 3, if I'm not mistaken, we're all sinners.
I did get that vibe.
Yeah.
Somebody keeps trying to say that, but yeah, I think it's true.
Yeah. You'd never know it.
Right.
No.
Most people feel like they're pretty
Well,
squeaky clean.
Even yesterday in 7, I mean, the way that he's like, I have this sin, I don't want to do this sin, I still
Yeah.
do this sin. I was like, yeah, that's me every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just reading that. You're like, that is exactly what my brain does through all these things. Like when you like make a mistake or you do a sin, you're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. Why am I doing that?
That
And-
section in Romans 7 is so like
Relevant.
yeah,
Yes.
every time I read it out loud, I just think to myself, when he wrote that, it's so incredible. It's hard to read because it's the things I don't want to do, I do. You know,
Yes.
like there's a lot of do, don't
Tongue
do.
twisters. Yeah, for sure.
But boy, does he ever capture the human condition in such an incredible way that I don't know how anyone could read that and not see themselves on the page.
And then he comes to the end of all of that musing and says, "And thanks be to God
Yeah.
through our Lord Jesus Christ, who loves me anyway."
Yeah, Romans 8, verse 1, there is now no condemnation,
Yep.
even after all of chapter 7.
Yeah.
That's so great.
It really is.
So if you are not currently doing the reading challenge and you want to jump in, you certainly can join us at any time. We share the reading plan on social Sundays at 1. It's in your Believers Church app in the outlet,
Yeah.
which is a little article that
And
gets
in
written.
Sunday's programs.
A lot
And
of
it's
people.
in Sunday's program. So there's lots of ways to find it. And the goal is not so much to read through the New Testament as much as it is reading the Bible with others. So even if you've missed a bunch, just start this week. And it's such a foundational habit to develop if you're trying to follow Jesus. I had a conversation over the last couple of weeks with a guy in our church. I don't know how old he is. I would guess he's in his early 60s probably. And he came up to me and he said, "I just want to thank you." And I said, "For what?" He said, "For challenging me to read the Bible." And I don't know why it took me 38 years before I finally started to do it. It's not that I didn't know any better. I should have been. But for whatever
Romans
reason,
7.
you challenged me and I started reading it and it has changed everything.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's
that's
just so great. So yeah, you can do the same and you ought to do the same. So we don't have a what the what.
Oh, man.
I know it's very
It
disappointing.
is very disappointing.
By the way, I had I know Rochelle did the what and it was amazing.
yeah. I mean,
And then you did it last week and it was not nearly as
Irritating.
abrasive isn't the word that I'm looking for.
I think that fits.
But I had a listener tell me, and this is just for thought for future.
okay.
That you,
What?
She ruined their headphones.
I like the what.
She blew out their speakers.
No, she said perhaps what we could do is, like what we're doing in the series, if you have a child, that
Oh, yeah.
like a warning.
Yeah.
Or but if you're offended or if your ears hurt during what, just turn the volume down for a few seconds
Yeah.
and then come back.
I'm afraid
Just
they'll
as a
just never
courtesy.
turn it back on.
That's probably true. Yeah, we should never encourage anyone to turn it off. That'll be
I think
the end.
everything we're doing in the podcast should be to keep people listening.
Point well
But I agree.
taken. Yeah.
Typically the goal.
Right.
Jeremy's
Yeah.
working on some sound effects. I think it's gonna be good.
Okay.
We
yeah.
got some ideas.
So there,
Everybody will be happy.
the technology
Yeah.
is available
We're
because
not-
a couple weeks ago I heard you say
It's just created.
really.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Some
we are
new
on the
things.
cutting edge.
Yeah.
That's
We're getting there.
Fantastic. So let's transition now
Okay.
into the message,
Perfect.
shall we?
Yes.
So yesterday's message, part 3 of our series, Polarizing, Attracting Unity in a World That Repels. That's the stated goal
Yes.
of the series. And
Is the stated goal.
yeah. And I have been, I said, naively optimistic that this is just going to bring us all together.
Yep.
So
We figured it out.
so far, that has not been my experience, but the series isn't over.
Well, and I think there's, in these sorts of circumstances, the negative often
Gets louder.
drowns out the positive.
That's true.
Even if the positive is more.
Yeah,
And so some
That's
of that
fair.
is maybe what's happening.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and also there's something you said about reflection is always after.
Yes,
It doesn't ever happen in the moment.
Right.
So
which is why our memory verse is so important.
Yes.
Candace, thank you for bringing that up. Heather, could you read the memory verse?
For
Transition.
sure. Our memory verse for this whole series is James 1:19, which says, "Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry."
Yeah, so allow space to reflect.
Yeah.
And to do that does kind of require like pause, right?
You know, I don't know about you, but when something really upsets me, I always invoke the 24-hour rule.
That's a good rule.
You know, you have to have that 24-hour rule to reflect on it, to sit in it for a minute, because you might have a different emotion later than you did right at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And in the waiting, I think it's also probably like part of reflecting, which I think as a culture, we're not very good at it. But like maybe even to ask yourself, like, why am I feeling so strongly about this? Why am I feeling compelled to interject something in this? I think that why question can be helpful to kind of unearth maybe some things.
Yeah, I think sometimes what happens in that 24-hour period maybe is that we like run to our tribe and tell them why we're so upset about this thing, which just can stir up the thing. Where if we do like actually take that time to sit in it with ourselves, to sit in prayer over it, to like maybe if you're married or you have like a best friend or something, that it's like, okay, I'm just gonna like get some input from my person on this thing. That can be helpful. But when we like get upset and we're like, okay, I'm not gonna reply to this thing or respond to this thing for 24 hours, but then I'm just gonna like stir up all of the reasons
rehearse
why
all the reasons why I'm upset.
Which I've done like many times. Like I want to tell my side of things, and can you believe that this person said this thing about that thing? And then they're just like, no, I can't believe that. And that just like,
then 24 hours
right.
24 hours later,
Now
you're even more amped up.
I have the ammunition to go back and,
Yeah, so we're in week 3, and the topic yesterday was women's rights. And it occurred to me just how long the journey has been for women in their struggle for equality. And on so many levels, it's baffling to me that this struggle has been, I mean, women didn't have the right to vote till 1920.
Yep.
Like, that's astonishing to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. This question's probably unanswerable, but why? Why is that? Why is this such a pressing issue still today? And it's certainly in other parts of the world. Women have the struggle for rights is even greater, certainly, than it is here in the States. But there's still, I mean, you mentioned pay inequality. There's still so many things. So what's at the heart of all that, do you suppose?
I think a guy should answer this first.
Yeah, Sam?
Yeah, tell us.
Candace. Please go, Candace.
Well, here's the problem, is women really haven't been invited to the table. Okay. Just from the very beginning. So if we look at our House of Representatives, all right, less than 30% are women.
Yeah.
If we look at our Senate, less than 30% are women. Out of the
And how long ago was that even? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that there weren't hardly any women representation.
Right now, it's a record.
Right.
At 25%.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a little bit more on this. So our SCOTUS, there's been 115 who sat on the Supreme Court. 6 of them have been women.
Yeah.
Okay. They are not at the table where decisions should be made.
Yeah.
They are not represented. And women make up 50.4% of the population. So we make up half the population, but we don't have a voice in our, not only in the decisions, but we don't have a voice typically at the workplace.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big reason as to why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the root of the why is, I mean, it rests in patriarchy, which comes from a place of fear and pride. So you're losing lack of control if you, whoever you are, don't have influence in these places. So if it's been male dominated forever, then there's a fear that if all of the men are still not the ones that are dominating, then someone else is taking over, and that hurts pride. That there's a fear of like, well, what's going to happen if the women are a part of these things? So I think the root of the why is fear and pride.
And we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Tyler mentioned about pride.
Yeah.
And how big of a sin it actually is, and how it's not really been brought to the table.
Yeah, you were saying, so I think that's one thing not being brought to the table for sure. But even the tables that women and men are brought to now trying to work together, like we don't even know how to do it. Like it's a new thing for us as well.
Yeah.
And I think that still is like a pride issue
Yeah,
too. Is like
for
guys
sure.
trying to figure out how to, okay, yeah, let's lead together, and them still having some pride issues inside of that too. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So Heather, when you introduced yourself, you paused to, talk about the role that you're in, the role that you serve in, and how you said you were the first female executive director at Believers. We've only had one other person serve in the role, and it was a guy. But I probably caught a lot of people's attention just by walking through that. And I know, so I go to, lead pastor gatherings down at North Point in October each year. And, it's far and away a 90%, 95% guys that are there.
Yeah.
And there's not a ton of people there. There's 100, 110 or whatever it is. And there's usually like a table of women, 6 to 8 that fit in that role. And I know they're bringing into this more executive pastors and directors. So you'll be down
I'll
there
be there this year.
This year, so that'll be kind of fun. But navigating what is predominantly a men's world, church leadership. What have been some of the unique or off-putting things that you've kind of encountered that you just on the regular kind of face that maybe people wouldn't think of?
That's such a good question. I find it a little bit hard to answer for my context here because I don't really experience it a lot here.
Correct.
So, however, I will say that, like I talked about on Sunday, that I started my career here as the secretary. And at the time, there was a person on staff who probably had a very, a sexist view of what a secretary is and what they should be doing and how they participate in being a part of a staff team. So that just full transparency, I didn't handle that well because I really rise up in those situations and dig my heels in. So
you dig your heels in?
Yeah,
I've never noticed that.
I've not noticed that
No, I
either.
haven't either.
So, I too should have handled that better. But that would be one way that I experienced here, just a tasking sort of thing, asking me to do something that was it would just bug me, and so I just wouldn't. That's how I would respond to it.
Yeah. So when you told
no.
when you told the story of you being hired as the secretary, which made me chuckle because I remember that so well. And for full transparency, you said you thought I was making a terrible decision, but we did have a conversation about.
Right.
I really wasn't hiring you to be the secretary.
Yeah.
I knew you'd be a terrible secretary. So I wasn't hiring you to be the secretary, although that was your job title.
Yeah.
I wanted to hire you because you were the right person to bring on staff, and I knew that. And that was the only way I could afford to bring you on
Right.
staff at the time.
Yeah.
And so I had different goals for you
Yes.
than that.
Yeah.
But that is how it all started.
Right.
It's kind of funny.
But yeah, in the bigger scope of things, you know, we talk about it a lot. We're a part of the Irresistible Church Network, and within that network, one of the things that we've all really benefited from individually as staff people, but even as a church, is being a part of this network that has a lot of different churches with a lot of different views on these things. And so there are churches in our network that have, you know, do not allow for women to be in higher levels of leadership. There are churches in our network who would be more how Believers was even a few years ago, that they could serve in high levels of leadership, but not as elders and pastors. And then there are fewer churches that are at a level where they would have elders and pastors that would also be female participants in that level of leadership. And so I think some of the navigating of that is trying to bring a voice to how we came to the conclusions that we came to and why we're walking in that direction without being condemning or insensitive to where these other churches have landed. I think for women to show up in these spaces also with a heart to partner with their male counterparts versus like to take over and to like strip them of their male identity and like what males bring to the table, and to be a voice for that as well as being a voice for what they bring to the table as women is a really important thing to do in showing up in these spaces that are new to having that in the history of things.
So much I want to say right now, but I want to ask Candace first before I dip back into the theological world. Candace, your work has you, as you mentioned about policymakers, so it has you at the table with predominant, again, a field that's pretty much dominated by men, and you're there advocating for causes that are important to women.
Yes.
How is that? How challenging is that? And what are some of those unique challenges that you face in that?
Oh man, that's we don't have enough time for that one.
Yeah.
But let's start with how I got there.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we'll go into a little bit the why, but I actually worked for a male-dominated industry before I even got into advocacy work and things along those lines. And it wasn't until I was expecting my first child through surrogacy that I went to the HR of this Fortune 500 company, said, I need to take maternity leave because I'm going to be a mom. And I was told, because you are not birthing your own child, we can't grant you maternity leave.
Wow.
And I didn't fall under FMLA because of how the structure was set up with branches. So I said, okay, this isn't for me. And so I left a career of 11 years.
Wow.
And then I started a marketing company which focuses on reproductive health. So reproductive health is not just women, but it's also men, also because they're part of the equation.
Yeah.
And part of that, I also did a lot of volunteer work. So I started volunteering to do Advocacy Day fly-ins. We would coordinate 200-300 people, and we would all go to DC and start, advocating there. And then from there, I started working with clients who they focus on reproductive health advocacy. So some of the stories are really, really sad as to working with some of these policymakers, and it really has changed my view on a lot of things. But I guess the one thing is, okay, so what is it like working, with these policymakers that are, most of them are male dominated, right? Well, perfect example. We were trying to stop an anti-family building bill. It was a personhood bill, and in Ohio, which would essentially stop future health care management for women who were having like an ectopic pregnancy or miscarriage management. Obviously, Abortion was one of them, access to IVF, things along those lines. And the lawmaker, we were talking to him about it and said, hey, look, this is the impact of this. And their response to fixing this as to why they could do this as well, we'll just take that embryo from the ectopic pregnancy and implant that into the uterus. Okay. All right. From theory, okay, sure.
Right.
The reality of it is that technology doesn't even exist.
Right.
So it's not even a solution. So we have this lawmaker who has no knowledge of reproductive health care, how pregnancy actually happens, or miscarriage management, setting up a law that could dictate this.
Yeah.
And that was their solution.
Right.
And okay, so what if that was a technology that worked? Who's paying for that? No insurance company at the moment.
Right.
That's one of so many.
Yeah.
The biggest one, though, is with wounded vets. We have a big problem trying to get, we were having a big problem trying to get coverage for wounded vets to have them have access to IVF. Finally got the ban lifted at the VA for it, though, after years and years and years of advocacy work. But those conversations were hard.
Yeah. So, being at that table, again, what you're saying is with women not at those tables, not part of those conversations, not part of the solutions, there's just huge misses going on that are catastrophic, really.
I mean, there's an
Uneducated.
I was gonna say there's
that's
an ignorance
right.
factor,
Yes.
and that's not to say like to be demeaning to that person. It's
Right.
just saying like
You just don't have
you're
that
saying something,
perspective
that you don't
or
have
experience.
knowledge of,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah, and not only are women missing from that equation, but the people who are treating these are the people who are involved. So how are you going to pass a bill or dictate something that has to do with healthcare if you don't have the professionals and experts there explaining why this could impact other people?
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem I have.
Yeah. So, Sam?
Oh no, I was just thinking like if like my 5 buddies got together trying to make decisions for that, it'd be ridiculous because you have no experience in it. Like
Right.
you just don't understand it. So like learning that information, I didn't realize that was happening. Yeah, that's super difficult.
Yeah. So, Heather, you talked a little bit yesterday about the idea that for this series, we put together this panel, and Candace was part of this panel, which I'm so very grateful for her. And that was part of our preparation for this series. And you said that Candace shared some of her story. And now that we have Candace right here, live in person, you shared just a snippet, but could you share just a little bit more of your story so that I think, it explains the passion that you have around the subject matter?
Absolutely. It's weird because you have this vision, when you get married. Oh, I'm going to get married, going to buy that house, white picket fence, dog, 2 kids,
Yeah.
And that never happened for us at the very beginning.
Yeah.
For us, it took a decade. It took a decade for us to finally complete our family. But in that decade, and I'm sure you have stacks of, or could have had stacks of communication cards and prayer cards from us over those years. And, it's just really interesting to think what you envision doesn't always happen, right?
Yeah. For sure.
That was us in family building. So it started off with my husband. He had at the beginning stage, he had a brain tumor. And after he got that resected, we said, you know what, we should probably start this whole family building thing sooner than later because life is short and tomorrow is never promised.
Yeah.
So we started. And what became month after month of disappointment became year after year of disappointment. It became trash cans filled with pregnancy tests and ovulation kits that were just it was just all negative. And we had 6 what's called intrauterine inseminations, which is kind of like the basic form of fertility treatment.
Okay.
Then after that, we had 6 IVF treatments. Pause. A lot of people have problems with IVF. And
So could you explain, I mean, just what is the IVF process, and why are people opposed to it?
Yeah, you know, it's a medical treatment. And it's just that. But people are opposed to it because of the deposition of embryos afterwards.
Okay.
And that really is. And you know, and we will sit with congressional leaders and try to explain this to them, and we'll have an REI, reproductive endocrinologist, explain that, you know, they're just cells. They have not it's just cells. But it's really hard to explain why the deposition of embryos, for people who don't understand the full process, as to why there's that moral conflict.
Right.
Yeah. And so we went on, and, you know, we were really persecuted for how we chose to build our family. And this is what's really interesting is, for anyone who is struggling with infertility or reoccurring miscarriage and things along those lines, a lot of people don't quite understand. The flippant advice is, well, why don't you just adopt? There's all these kids out there that need a home, right? Because, you know, let's just to say, you know, that's probably the first thing that people who are listening are saying,
Right.
well, why didn't she just try to adopt?
Right.
Tell you why, we did twice. One ended up in a miscarriage. The other one, the parental parents decided to parent.
Mm-hmm.
However, adoption isn't accessible to all. And I
Right.
really want people to understand that.
Yeah.
And for us, because of Chris's health, and because I had my own beginning stages of cancer, we had to essentially lie to our adoption agency. And we had to go to a different place to get our physicals and things along those lines so that we can even have the opportunity.
Right, because you have to have basically a clean bill of health
Yes.
to be a good candidate as adoptive parents. Otherwise, if you don't, like, you're removed from that list of parenting pool in a lot of agencies.
In a lot of agencies.
Yeah.
And, you know, not all.
Right.
And there's discriminatory agents. I mean, that's a whole
Yeah.
other thing. But but for us, the other piece of it was, you know, at this point we've already exhausted quite a bit of our expenses, and adoption can start anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000, and that is 2 to 3 IVF trials.
Wow.
Why not? What would you choose?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then foster care, which is the other option, obviously. So why don't you foster to adopt, right? And it's a great option. It is a wonderful option. It's not a great option for infertile parents. And I'll give you this perspective. You have people who have had stillbirth. You've had people who have had multiple miscarriages. You've had people who have spent 10 years longing to be a parent. And then you start the foster care process. And the goal of the foster care system is to reunite them with their biological family.
That's the stated goal.
That's the stated goal.
Yep.
Imagine that happening to a couple like myself and my husband.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we love on this child. We finally have this family.
And then gone.
The hurt is too big. It's too risky to your heart.
Yeah.
So we tried adoption. We just tried to adopt. It didn't work for us.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that we had somebody come to us and offer to be a surrogate. And the rest was history. From there, we had our first daughter through gestational surrogacy, which was amazing. Can't even the comments, y'all.
Well, can you tell us what surrogacy is? Because I think that's when, as you and I have talked to, you know, there's just a little bit of ignorance there, right, as to what that is. So you told me a story of like some of the questions that you would get, and yeah, you're able to laugh about them, but they're just shocking.
Oh, they're shocking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, all right. Well, first of all, there's traditional surrogacy, and then there's gestational surrogacy. Most people do gestational surrogacy. So, our bun, another oven.
I love how Candace explains these things. It's so accessible.
Yeah.
I need this.
I get that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Traditional surrogacy. Her oven, her egg.
Okay.
Okay.
Either donor sperm or the paternal sperm.
Right.
So they have a biological tie. The laws are just a little too muddy when it comes to parentage and things along those lines. So traditional surrogacy isn't really a thing.
Okay.
It's not. It's a thing, but it's not common.
Okay.
So, questions. My favorite ones was, how on earth can you let your husband sleep with another woman?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? When did this happen? No, surrogacy. No, gestational.
Yeah.
It all happened in a lab.
Right.
So, and it's funny because I always explain to my kids, because we're very open about their birth story, because it's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And so we always say that the doctors took a piece from mommy, took a piece from daddy, and we created a Joey, and we just put it in the kangaroo's pouch.
Yeah.
And so we have an awesome kangaroo who helped us. So
Yeah.
So good.
yeah. So first baby was born through surrogacy. Then we actually went through a second one, and that failed, and it was heart-wrenching. It was so heart-wrenching. And this is actually a faith-led kind of. It's very interesting how how Brooks came along, or a wild card. So I was done. And when we lost $24,000 with that failed surrogacy, and it was we were getting ready to start the process. It was very heart-wrenching. And Chris, I went into depression, and because when you have a child and you are trying to be a mom and you're grieving, you can grieve in the car after you drop them off, in the shower, and that's it.
Right.
You have to support that other child. You have to let them know you're strong and things like that. So it was jagged. Got out of that. However, Chris, he decided that he was like, I'm going to make this happen. I said, well, look, I'm going to give it till August. This was at the beginning of the summer. I said, because I can't take any more. I said, after this, we are going to be a beautiful, happy family of 3.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So the week before, there was a B group, or like a support group. It's not this church, it was a different one. And one of the ladies there was talking about wanting to become a surrogate. And someone just happened to know us. I said, well, I know a Christian couple that you might want to talk to. And the man actually knew Chris. So at this like sweaty F3 workout, which is like a faith-led workout group that's local, this guy comes up
They're
to Chris.
crazy, by the way. It's wild.
I
Those
don't know.
workouts.
I don't know why they do that.
They're nuts, yeah.
Yeah, they are. But this guy comes up to my husband and is like, hey, my wife is looking to get pregnant with through a surrogacy.
Wow.
We heard you're looking. Not in that way, but it was,
Sure.
But you don't really see guys come up to other guys and talk about this. But it's amazing how faith actually, this community brought us Brooks.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yep.
So that's how Brooks came to be, through surrogacy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So with that background, the next part that I want to bring up just makes sense. So Heather referenced the article that I wrote a month after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And, from my perspective, I was trying to challenge pro-life Christians to not be jerks. So that was the intent of my article, because I'd seen a bunch of people from church posting stuff on social that I knew were just terribly insensitive, uncaring, unloving, unkind. And it was like, it reminded me of like a sporting event where there's spiking the ball, and you see the protests going on at the Supreme Court, and just all of it was just so chaotic. And so as a person who I would describe myself as for life, right? So I would describe myself that way, and yet I was kind of embarrassed by what I was seeing representing my perspective. Yeah. And so I wrote that article really to challenge that. But coming from the journey that you've been on as you read it, it didn't hit you that way at all. And the idea of the panel that we have for this series really came about as a result of that article. So in a way, I'm just super grateful that, we had to walk through that. So I was able to sit down with you and Chris, and we were able to just talk about, our thoughts on that, and hear a little bit of your story, which, makes perfect sense that there would be a very strong emotional response to what I did not intend to be, come off as insensitive to you and others like you who have been on that journey. And so, we were able to talk through it. And you asked me, one of the questions that you asked when we met was, if you're writing something that, has the potential to be controversial, who else is at the table with you? And I very honestly said, it's nobody. It's me by myself in my office.
Yeah.
But that question just so resonated with me. And I know I told you that night, I was like, man, that's just such a great question. And, yeah, I can do better. I can do better than that. And so when we started talking about this series, I immediately was like, we need to put a panel together of people who think differently than the teachers on the stage, so that we can have a better understanding of where people are coming from. And so I'm grateful that that we had to go through that to get to where we are. Because it's made us better, and it's made me better. So I just want to thank you for that.
Well, no, thank you. And I'll tell you, it's the same as, you could be right.
Yeah.
Here's the same. I'm going to lob back at you because, Chris and I, we gave it way more than the 24-hour rule.
Yeah, you did. It was some months.
It was some months. But we didn't. We essentially left Believers for a moment.
Yeah.
And we finally sent that goodbye email.
Yep.
And I so appreciate your candidness. You're like, great email, but
yeah,
why haven't we talked about this?
Right. That's always my thing with people who leave. Like, why are we not having a conversation?
Why are we not having a conversation?
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You are so right. We need to have that conversation because you could be right. I could be right.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
Right.
In the lieu of
Yes.
the series.
I love that you bring that up too, because in that time frame, like, I think the Lord was just orchestrating for that conversation to happen, because it was earlier that week that you guys had decided to send the email and kind of call it quits. And Jamie had reached out for that to meet. And then in the meantime, we all ended up at a restaurant at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I saw you, and we started chatting, because we're girlfriends and are seeing each other at this restaurant. And then
that was like the day after.
It was the day after. It was so awkward for a moment.
And it was like, okay, we got to run to this thing. We can't run away from it. That's not going to be helpful to anybody.
Yeah.
But if we run to it, look at what happens when we run to it.
Yeah. It's one of the most painful things in ministry is people who leave without the courtesy of a conversation. It's just so painful because I love my church family, and I love the people who I have the opportunity to shepherd and invest in through teaching and whatnot. So it's just the most painful thing. And the email that I got started with, we've been at Believers for 10 years and it's been so great. And, but we're leaving because of this thing. And I was like, well, wait a second. If it's been so great, then let's
figure out great.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting because there's often times where we might not agree on a certain thing.
Well,
and
sure.
that's normal.
Right.
I
don't even agree with myself all of the time.
Yes. But I really do encourage anyone who does have that doubt, stick it out just a little bit longer and see what the next message is, or talk to someone. Just talk, just ask questions, challenge you.
It's so true. And I was talking to someone in the green room yesterday, and I just watched an interview with Rick Warren on his change of position on women in ministry. The Saddleback Church got tossed out of the Southern Baptist Convention because of their change of position. And Rick Warren was being interviewed about his change. And if you've ever watched an interview with Rick Warren, they're hilarious because he's like a thoroughbred horse that no one can control.
Yeah.
And so like they open the gate and Rick just runs. Yeah. And it's like nonstop for an hour. And the guy's trying to interject something here or there. And it was just impossible. But Rick Warren mentioned that I can't remember how many hundreds of different Baptist denominations there are, but hundreds just within the Baptist world.
Right.
And in the conversation I was having in the green room yesterday, we were talking about like the series that we're in and how, you know, people have strong opinions on these things. And he had he was confirmed Lutheran when he was 12 years old.
There we go.
And
Nice.
he said the person, I think it was the pastor of that church or whatever, had the wisdom to say, you know, like there's like thousands of denominations around the world. We can't all be right.
Right.
And I'm thinking,
So
and
true.
within the Baptist world, there's hundreds of denominations, and they're different because they have a different perspective on a issue.
A thing.
And so they splinter and you know, fracture off. And so, you know, I grew up an unchurched kid who looked at the church world as bizarre. Like, why is there the Lutheran church on this corner and the First Baptist on this corner? Like, what gives
And
with
another
all
Lutheran
that?
church down the street.
Right. What gives with
Yeah.
that? I didn't understand the whole denominational thing. It just
Yeah.
made no sense to me. Like if they all say they're following Jesus, what gives with that?
Yeah.
And I think it's this idea that like I have to be in an environment where I agree with absolutely everything. You're going to be in a very small room eventually. Or there's just no way that we're going to talk about matters of life and faith and death and agree 100% across the board.
Yeah.
And so like to get to a place where it's okay to not be in lockstep on everything. There are some essentials, right? And then
Majors.
what's that?
The majors.
Yeah, the majors. And then there's so many other things that and like with this particular topic, you know, what I came to understand was like my understanding of someone who would be on the pro-choice side was dictated by much of the voices that I would hear and listen to. And so, Heather, you said yesterday, you know, not every, how did you say it? Not everyone who is pro-choice is a baby killer, and not everyone who's pro-life, I can't remember what
Is anti-women's rights.
is anti-women's rights. Yeah,
Right.
like but we've gotten to this place where that is like it
That's the
seems like
narrative.
that's the only alternative is
Yeah.
these two things. And my conversation with you kind of blew apart part of my framework. So, you know, as a pro-choice follower of Jesus, there is some, you know, there are some voices in the pro-choice world that, you know, that Heather read the quote from you yesterday, you know, and maybe they're the extreme examples where some people do treat, I think, my understanding, some people do treat abortion as a form of, well, this was just a nuisance pregnancy and I just want to be done with it. So as you navigate that as a follower of Jesus, yeah, how do you wrestle through that? Because the other side of that is the laws that are being passed currently.
With the Dobbs decision.
With the Dobbs decision, it's way more than abortion, and it's all of these unintended consequences that you are so passionate about.
It's women's health.
Right.
It's basic women's health.
Right.
And so I think it's important is to start with, I used to wear the jersey that was pro-choice. And I always say, we need to cast those jerseys aside.
I agree.
It's not one team over another.
That's right.
But I would have said that I was pro-life years ago. It wasn't until I started really walking in my path with Jesus and really working on my own faith story and wanting to become a family and wanting to become a parent that I actually became very much pro-family. We'll call it pro-choice, pro-women's health.
Yeah.
Because, Jesus tells us to walk alongside people who are in their grief. I have seen so many women who want to become a parent, who are having ectopic pregnancies, who are having miscarriages, who are now not having access to the basic care that they need, who have to bleed out in some states in order to get treatment. It's not just a birth control situation.
Right.
The outliers of this is so much more.
Yeah.
And those actually fall in a very, very, very small piece of that pie. It's not pie, really.
Right.
But if we were to break it out, that one small bit is so small. And so the issue here is most of us who are pro-family, pro-choice, we are so much pro-life to the point where because of the impact of the Dobbs decision, it has become so much of the opposite of what it was intended.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that is the biggest threat to women currently now. And of course, my daughters.
Yeah.
Just having basic access to care.
Right. I appreciate so much you sharing that. It's so helpful in, just enlarging our ability to process, a whole picture. I think a lot of people are making, choosing their side based on a sliver of information.
Well, that's
and your mantra was so helpful yesterday. Did you make that up, by the way?
yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's
like
great.
catchy. Is like it could be a song. I feel like it could be the
Oh
Sam
well,
wrote it.
Rochelle's not here
Oh,
to do her little sing-songy things, but
Put it in a jingle.
yeah,
yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be a jingle. Yeah. So could you read that mantra for us again?
Yeah, it's I'm here to learn. I'm not here to fight. I may be wrong, and you may be right.
That's a Billy Joel song.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. You may be crazy.
You may be crazy.
That's right.
That'd have been better.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but you're crazy.
Yeah. No, I think that's like this perspective and even this conversation and of all of the topics that we've been covering in this series and the ones that we're not even able to cover in this series. So many things in our time get put into two boxes only.
Right.
So there's pro-life, pro-choice, there's Republican, there's Democrat, there's, we just have two options. And that can't possibly accommodate like all of the stories and all of the experiences and all of the outcomes from those decisions.
Well, so I'm struggling a little bit. Like I hear Candace, but it's I think because I've always ingrained in myself as pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
I see the middle ground, but I think for someone that says they're pro-life, I think it just feels like a slippery slope if you're like, well, okay, I can see some of the pro-choice things because now you're like, oh my gosh, no, there's like you're killing babies just by even like uttering those words. It feels like that, and I know that's wrong. Mm-hmm. But I also like that's where my brain is, and I would assume that's probably where a lot of pro-life people are. And I don't even know all those facts you just said. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know all those things. So I even understand that I don't have even like probably a 5% understanding of what someone like you're saying is why you would say you're pro-choice because you're pro-family. Like that all sounds so great to me, but I can't get over the stereotype of switching, or not even switching, but just like understanding that. That's just kind of where I'm sitting at with that. I don't know if you have anything to speak to that. If you can make me better, Candace, that would be great. That's usually what happens on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that the series is really pushing is to talk to other people that don't quite think like you.
For sure.
Right.
Okay. You will learn so much.
Yeah.
And learn their story, learn why. But most of all, as a follower, how can I support you in your grief? How can I walk with you and not judge you?
Yeah.
It's not our job to judge. It's only one person's,
Yeah.
not us.
Yep.
So I really do encourage, learn more, ask questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Ask me all the questions, Sam.
Yeah. Well, no, I just even think like for me, even to like put my foot down and be like, this is my stance.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what I don't know even,
Yeah.
a lot of us don't even know the whole other side of this. I know that's what we're saying,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to make it practical. It's like,
Wouldn't you agree, though, that a lot of us don't know the other side, but a lot of us don't even know the side that
Correct.
we're standing on?
absolutely.
Like when you start to even like dig into that a little bit more, you realize like what you are standing on that's what I said in the message. Like it challenges our ideology and our theology because we're aligning with this thing based on a very like narrow view of what that stance's ideology and theology is. When we actually start to tease that out, just like we're doing with the other side, do we really still fit in that box that we've climbed into and like
Right.
we've shut the lid on?
Right.
I don't know that most of us could, just from just any sort of other perspective. It's the denomination talk. Like we'll
Yeah.
climb into these denominations and then one thing shifts in what they're saying, and now we're looking to jump into the next denomination because now
Right.
we're not fully aligned here. And we're not allowing ourselves to explore that within these two boxes of pro-life and pro-choice.
Yeah, your mindset, and you're not going to learn anything if it's the same people sitting there that agree
Right.
with you on everything. Like I can completely agree with that. Like we have to be bringing people to the table. Transition back to that. It's like that are thinking different. I mean, I've done that with politics over the years. I've done it with like race questions, but as far as like pro-life, pro-choice, I don't think I've ever done that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why what you were saying, it's so upsetting when people just send an email like we're out.
Yeah.
But I think they do that because it's scary. Like it's so scary to think, oh, maybe someone's thinking different than me, but they love Jesus. They said they love Jesus forever, but why are they acting? Why are they making this decision? Instead of having a conversation, it's just like we're out. We're gonna go find people that agree with me.
Yeah.
And it's really tough.
Yeah. And so I want to kind of turn it back towards the latter part of your message.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think before I do that, just to say, here we sit with Candace, who, loves life so much that she's arrived at the conclusions that she has, and that that kind of busts some of the stereotypes that you're kind of
Exactly.
referring to. And then the consequences of that Dodd's decision, which a lot of these restrictive laws that are being put in place, there's so many unintended consequences of women being unable to get the care they need after a miscarriage and all of those various things. And there's next week's topic. There's some laws that are being passed that are a lot of unintended consequences around that stuff too. And that was one of the things that you said, I think earlier even, but I know in the past that we've talked about it, where people who are responsible for the laws that are being enacted, they're advocating for laws that in domains that they just are clueless in. And so it's not that they're trying to keep women from having the care that they need. It's just that the laws are so sweeping that is the result.
Yeah, there's outliers.
Yeah.
And there's outliers with humans.
Yes. Yes.
And I think the problem is we're too busy looking at something that is linear.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. Life, grief, all these things, there's so many outliers that can impact us. And so I think if we start looking at those outliers versus straight lines,
Yeah.
we'll grow more in our faith.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Heather, you shared from John 8 and a handful of other passages, and we're kind of running. I've run a terrible ship today. So
I think it's been great.
way out of
because
control.
time?
Yeah.
Oh, Doug's gonna love
Yeah,
it.
Doug's
he
gonna
loves
love
a
it.
long podcast.
So you went through John 8, you went through a couple other passages, but the idea of all of that was just to discuss the nature of the role of women and how Jesus postured himself towards women. And it's astonishing to me how if we say we follow Jesus, how the church that says they follow Jesus could arrive at such a backwards conclusion for how they regard women
Yeah. I agree.
after you see Jesus.
Right.
So can you just talk about that a little bit? I mean, it does kind of blow my mind. Although I have a couple conversations that are running through my head right now that I want to talk about, but
Okay.
they'll have to wait for another time.
I mean, I'm here for it.
No.
So if you want to talk about it, let's
no,
do
that's
it.
all right.
Yeah, I guess. Do you want me to just talk about how we see Jesus play out?
Yeah, just
His
like
relationships with women?
Yeah, I think just his posture towards women in general.
I mean, in Jesus's day, women were at best second-class citizens. And so there was you will see like in history, like even in Rome, where there were definitely like women who were in places of leadership within culture. But it was still so class oriented there that a lot of that can't like really translate over to the Christian church and into Judaism and even what we learn with the Gentiles. So there was definitely in sort of the normal people kind of thing where women were subject to men. And we see that with children too. Like men were the dominating part of the human race, and women and children were second to them in all aspects. And
you mentioned that like in Roman society there was some there are examples of women in leader type roles. I mentioned this book a week or so ago.
This is one of my favorite books right now.
Yeah, it's so good. Nijay Gupta, Tell Her Story, How Women Led, Taught, and Ministered in the Early Church. I saw him interviewed and went and bought the book and read the book a few weeks ago. But he talks about how women did lead in Roman society. They were definitely a strong minority, but they did. But what's interesting is like for Jesus, he's also coming he's not just a contemporary of the Roman culture. He's also coming from a Jewish background, which was a different thing altogether.
Totally different thing altogether. And yet he positioned himself to be in proximity with women. He included women to sit at the teaching table, like to come and hear him teach, which was like absurd. He had them in his inner circles within the apostles. A lot of them funded his ministry. We get that right from scripture. That's not conjecture. No, right. It's laid out in scripture. And yeah, I think the most when he interacts with them, he does so gently, he does so humbly. He often is very protective of them. So that's like we could say that's a male dominant kind of character trait is protection, and he does that like in his full maleness, but he does so in a way that elevates the status of women in those circumstances that he finds himself in with them in the public square.
Yeah. And therefore, the church that bears his name ought to do the same.
Ought to do the same.
It's so wild. You say that story yesterday about the woman, being put on trial in front of everybody. And while it's not quite that way now, we're still having to defend like Jesus did. Mm-hmm. It's just, that's what just kept sitting with me.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
I think the piece that even kind of was jumping off my iPad to me even yesterday when presenting the message was in that passage when they're asking Jesus to take the stand, to say whether they're going to stone her or let her go kind of thing. And just in kind of talking through that a little bit and addressing the trap that they had set for him is if he lets her go, then he's anti-moral. So if he doesn't call her out on this thing, then he's anti-moral. If he does let her go, the other way around. If he does let her go, he's anti-moral. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't let her go, then he himself is propping himself as a hypocrite because it's going against what he teaches in grace and love. And isn't that where we find ourselves in these polarizing conversations? Yep. If we are actually going to attract and not repel and bring to the middle, then that's the position we're going to find ourselves in. That one side will call us anti-moral and another side is going to say we're hypocrites.
Yeah, you're either a compromiser
that's the position.
Or a hypocrite. Yeah.
And yet, that's where Jesus stood. And that's where he operated, and that's where he showed compassion and grace and mercy. And I love the picture of that.
Yeah.
And in that particular story, which is repeated in a lot of the stories that I referenced really quickly through, just after going through this one, I think Jesus shows up in these stories when people are being condemned and ridiculed and put on display for whatever the sin is that they're choosing to make a stance on at the time. And he hardly even addresses that thing because the religious leaders have done such a horrible job at that they've just wounded the wounded even more. Mm-hmm. And so he comes in and displays his healing power. And through miracles and stuff, we see his healing power physically in a lot of different areas. But in those circumstances, he is displaying the healing power that he has for our soul, for the wounds that we have because of the sin that separates us from God, but also for the wounds that are inflicted on us by others to our soul. Mm-hmm. And God heals that through the person of Jesus, in that he doesn't condemn, but he forgives. He offers forgiveness. And while we don't have the power to offer Jesus's forgiveness directly, we do, as followers of Christ, have the power to offer forgiveness through Jesus by pointing others to him. And that's where relationships are healed with one another and with God.
Yeah, so good. And, just thinking about those various stories, what the religious people had a tendency to do was to dehumanize someone. They became an object to make a point rather than be a person.
They became the issue.
And I think, in many of our cultural conversations, it's the exact same thing, right? We have to dehumanize someone to be able to say some of the terrible things that we say about a group, but it's a group of people. Mm-hmm. And but we've so dehumanized them that they are the issue. They're no longer people. But even Jesus, before the crucifixion, he's washing the feet of the disciples, including Judas, who he knows is going to betray him. So even if someone does not embrace Christ, even if someone does not turn to him and find healing and forgiveness and all of the great things that you just said, it doesn't change the posture that we should have towards people.
Yeah, so good.
And that was the posture that Jesus had. And even as Judas went, he left the Passover meal, and Jesus doesn't even really rebuke him.
No.
He just says, go and do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't dehumanize Judas. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, he doesn't slam him in front of the other disciples. He doesn't.
He has the dignity of a person, even though he's making terrible decisions.
Yeah.
And even the people that you disagree with, we should at least offer them the dignity of being people who are created in God's image, whether they want to bear his image or not, whether they care about God or not, doesn't change the fact that they were created in his image and therefore, just on that merit alone, are worthy of being treated kindly.
Yeah.
And so, I've really enjoyed the series so far. We have 2 more weeks to go, and I'll be teaching this week coming up, and looking forward to the conversation that we'll have on that next week. So, Candace, thank you so much for
Candace.
joining
It's
us
so
today.
great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so good. Such a rich conversation. And thank you for tuning in or listening. And we hope to see you this coming Sunday, 10:45, as we continue our polarizing series. Go and be love.